Very heartbreaking news. Anne Hegerty's emotional announcement about Mark Labbett leaves fans deeply moved. For years, viewers around the world have watched The Chase not just for its intense questions and high-stakes moments, but for the unmistakable bond between its iconic stars. Among them, Anne Hegerty and Mark Labbett have shared a connection that goes far beyond the studio lights, a connection that fans have grown to cherish. But now, a deeply emotional announcement from Anne Hegerty has left fans stunned, reflective, and for many, heartbroken. This was not a moment planned for drama. This was not a headline designed for shock. This was something far more personal. When Anne finally spoke, her words carried a weight that instantly silenced speculation and touched the hearts of millions. Those who know Anne Hegerty know her as sharp, witty, and fiercely intelligent. She rarely allows emotions to spill into public view. So when her voice softened, when her words slowed, fans immediately sensed that something meaningful was unfolding. Anne didn't speak with anger. She didn't speak with blame. She spoke with honesty. And that honesty changed everything. She spoke about Mark Labbett not as a television personality, not as the beast, but the man behind the title, the colleague, the friend, the presence who had stood beside her through countless seasons, pressures, and unforgettable moments. What made the announcement so emotional was not what was said, but how it was said. Anne reminded fans that relationships built in the public eye are often misunderstood. Viewers see smiles, competition, and banter, but rarely the quiet conversations, the shared stress, and the unspoken understanding that forms behind the scenes. Anne reflected on the early days of The Chase, when everything felt uncertain, new formats, high expectations, constant scrutiny. Through it all, Mark was there. Not perfect, not unchanging, but present. Anne spoke about how time reshapes people, how life experiences alter perspectives, priorities, and even personalities, and how difficult it can be to accept those changes when the world expects everyone to remain frozen in the version they first fell in love with. One of the most emotional moments in Anne's announcement came when she acknowledged that change is not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes change is quiet. Sometimes it's a gradual distance. Sometimes it's conversations that happen less often. Sometimes it's realizing that two people who once stood side by side are now walking slightly different paths. Anne made it clear. This wasn't about conflict. It wasn't about scandal. It was about reality. And that reality, she admitted, was painful. As clips of Anne's words spread across social media, fans responded instantly. Many admitted they hadn't realized how deeply connected Anne and Mark were beyond the show. Others shared how the announcement reminded them of friendships in their own lives, relationships shaped by time, work, and shared pressure. Comments flooded in. You can feel the sincerity in her voice. This isn't gossip. This is real emotion. It hurts because it's relatable. For longtime viewers, the announcement felt like the closing of a chapter, not the end of a story, but a recognition that things don't always stay the same. Anne was careful with her words. She didn't criticize, she didn't accuse. Instead, she offered something rare in today's media landscape: respectful truth. She acknowledged Mark's impact on the show, on the team, and on her personally. She spoke about the pressure of living up to public expectations, especially when your identity becomes tied to a single role. Mark, she implied, has carried a tremendous weight, one that viewers may never fully see. And in that acknowledgement, Anne showed compassion. Perhaps the most haunting part of Anne's announcement was what she chose not to say. There were pauses, there were moments where emotion lingered, there were sentences that ended softly, as if unfinished. And in those silences, fans heard everything. Not anger, not bitterness, but acceptance mixed with sadness. The kind of emotion that comes from caring deeply, even when things change. In an era driven by clickbait and exaggeration, Anne Hegerty's announcement stood out because it felt human. No dramatic accusations, no sensational claims, just one person acknowledging the complexity of long-standing professional and personal bonds. It reminded viewers that public figures are not immune to the same emotional challenges as anyone else, navigating evolving relationships, adjusting to change, and learning to let go of expectations. Despite the emotional tone, Anne made one thing clear: the history she shares with Mark Labbett cannot be erased. Years of collaboration, shared success, unforgettable television moments, those things still matter. They always will. And while the future may look different from the past, the impact of what they built together remains etched in the hearts of fans. Even after the announcement, many viewers expressed hope, not necessarily for things to return to how they were, but for mutual peace and understanding. Because sometimes hope isn't about reunion. Sometimes hope is about respect. And Anne's words gave fans exactly that. As Anne concluded her announcement, her message felt universal. People grow, lives change, relationships evolve. And while that process can be heartbreaking, it can also be honest. Her words weren't meant to shock, yet they did, not because they were extreme, but because they were real. For fans of The Chase, this moment will be remembered not as controversy, but as a rare glimpse into the emotional reality behind the show, a reminder that even the strongest minds carry tender hearts. If this story moved you, take a moment to reflect on the people who've walked alongside you through different chapters of life. And if you appreciate honest stories beyond the headlines, stay connected for more thoughtful updates and reflections. Because sometimes the most heartbreaking news isn't about loss, it's about change.